Tracy's car needs brakes, so of course we're gonna do a little upgrade. So welcome back to Bad Luck Garage, guys. I'm going to go ahead and start off by saying my neighbors are having a little siesta over there, so it looks like the theme of this video is going to be mariachi music. So enjoy if you like mariachi music. If you don't, tough, can't do anything about it. So anyway, I haven't done a video on the wife's Camaro here in, geez, probably been a year or more, but what happened, guys, is a few videos back we actually did a Brakemotive brake upgrade on the China Vet here. You can see there the drilled and slotted rotors and everything. And we've actually been running the Brakemotive brakes on the Avalanche back here for over a year, pulling trailers, everything. They've done really well. Really happy with those. So when the wifey started having some brake issues with our 2011 Camaro here, I just went ahead and ordered up a set of Brakemotive brake rotors and ceramic pads for it. Now I'll put a link to this brake kit in the video description. $210, guys, and basically the reason I keep going with this is, number one, it's a slide upgrade, and number two, it's actually cheaper than just getting OEM replacement parts at your local parts store. $210 gets this whole kit for you. You get your front rotors, you get your rear rotors. They give you new clips to retain your brake pads. You get carbon ceramic brake pads, front and rear, all that for $210. Oh, and they even throw in some .3 brake fluid to top off your reservoir if you need to, or flush it out, whatever. Now, I've had some mixed comments in the videos I've done where I've installed these in the past. Guys, these are, if you've heard of Power Stop, these are Power Stop rotors. These are Power Stop brake pads. Same part numbers, they just don't have the Power Stop brand on them, right? I've actually mentioned that in several videos, but a funny thing happened when I got this kit. The brake pads always have the same part numbers as the Power Stop stuff, but ironically enough, when these brake pads came in, it actually says Power Stop right there on the label here. So it's the Power Stop Z16 Evolution ceramic pad. So guys, when you order these Brakemotive brake kits, you're getting Power Stop for half the price of Power Stop. All right, so enough about that little ramble. What I'm going to do, I'm just going to go ahead and show you guys how to put this stuff on. It's basic brake job, guys, but I know a lot of people don't know how to do it, so we're going to go ahead and show you how to do it. Obviously, the first thing you want to do is get the car up on jack stands. What I generally do, I use a floor jack in the front here, your little cross member that runs under the power steering rack. I just throw my jack under there, and then, you know, put my jack stands on either side on these braces right here. In the rear, we just jack it up by the diff, and then put our jack stands underneath here where the lower control arms come in at. Okay, I'm so sorry if you guys like mariachi music, but it was getting on my nerves, so I had to close the door. So starting up front, we're going to get the wheel off. So on the back side of our caliper here, we've got two 14mm bolts, one here and one down here. We'll break those loose. Go ahead and take those all the way out. And remove our inner caliper here. Just going to take us a piece of coat hanger, hook it through our caliper, and hang him over here out of the way. You don't want to let your caliper hang by the rubber brake hose. It's not good for it. Next, back here, holding the caliper bracket on, you've got two 18mm bolts. You got one up here and one down here. So you need to break those loose and pull them out. Those guys are on there pretty good, so might have to use a breaker bar for that. I'm actually gonna have to get down here, probably right in the way of the camera. Oh yeah, those are on nice and snug. One loose. Once you get them broke loose, you can back them the rest of the way out with your ratchet. Oh, I could probably use my impact for this with a bunch of adapters and whatnot, but I'm just going to go old school. So we get those bolts out. And we can just pull our bracket off with our brake pad still on. Now to get our rotor off, and you can see our rotor's got a lot of grooves cut in it there. But we've got our little Torx screw here, and this takes a T30 Torx bit. So what you're going to want to do, stick you a pry bar or something in between a couple of your studs to hold it while you break this guy loose. And these aren't on too tight. If they are on too tight, then it's because whoever worked on this last done a number on it, but it shouldn't be too tight. Anyway, so we just hold it, break it loose, and twist it on out. There's our little Torx screw. After you do that, you got to pull the rotor off. This one's seized a little. Might have to give it a little whack on the back side. I'm using a leather mallet. You can use a rubber mallet, whatever. A little whack. She's loose. Slide her off. At this point, if you're really anal retentive, you know, you might want to clean up on this a little bit. This is also a good time to kind of check your wheel bearings. I don't have any play in the wheel bearing, but she's getting a little noisy, so we might be doing wheel bearing hubs on this car before long. But for now, we're going to go ahead and throw the new brake rotor on. So here's our new Brakemotive / Power Stop drilled and slotted rotor. These are labeled, guys. Turn the light down. You can see it says front passenger on this one. So all we're going to do is align our little screw hole with that little screw hole there and slide this guy on. Now, when you buy parts store rotors, you usually have to clean them really good with brake clean, just to get oil and residue and whatnot off. With these guys, they're just anodized, you know, so they're not going to rust while they're in the box, and there's no need for oil, so there's no oil on them. So what I'm going to do, go ahead and put this on, and then I'll probably hit it with a little brake clean just to clean my fingerprints or whatever off. Brake clean in a rag, but you don't have to just sit there and scrub on it like you do with a parts store rotor that's covered in oil. So here we go, line our holes up, slide this bad boy on, get our little hex screw started. Make sure the rotor's all the way on. Don't even know the torque spec on this, guys. On this part, really doesn't matter. We're just going to give it a little snug. Just remember, when you put it on, it wasn't very tight, and you don't really need to kill it putting it back on. As a matter of fact, I'm not even going to use the breaker bar to hold this. I'm just going to hold it myself, snug it, good to go. We'll go ahead and address something I know is going to come up, and that is Loctite. So here's my theory on Loctite, guys. If I take something apart and it does not have Loctite on it, I don't put Loctite on it putting it back together. Now when we did the brakes on the C5, on the China Vet, It had Loctite on the caliper bolts. It had Loctite on pretty much everything, so we used Loctite on that. This car, as you can see, like the caliper bolts, there is no Loctite on any of these, so we're not going to use Loctite when we put it back together. Now we're going to replace our pads. So this is pretty simple. Here's your inner pad. Just slips out. Notice your inner pad has got your little wear indicator on it. Now I think we see where the vibration was coming from. These pads are just all chipped up. There's all kinds of grooves cut in them. You know, just a lot of stuff's gotten between the pad and the rotor, and we are almost down to where our wear indicator was going to start touching. So we had some squealing coming in the very near future. So we're going to go ahead and pop both of these out. And since our brake kit came with new retainers, we're going to go ahead and pop our retainer clips out here. Maybe if you get a screwdriver, Robert, it'll make things a little easier, right? Since when do we do things easy around here? Now we'll take two of our new retainers, and they just pop right in, just like the old ones came out, guys. See that? Just pop right in there. We're going to take our new outer brake pad, and it's got shims on it just like the factory brake pad did, and we're just going to go ahead and pop him in. Hopefully you guys can see what I'm doing. Make sure you've got the brake material facing inside. I actually had a guy one time that brought me a Mustang, and he had put the brake pads in backwards, like put the opposite sides on, and had them flipped around. The metal outer part of the pad was actually against the rotor. It destroyed his rotors. Now we got our inner pad, which again is the one that has the wear indicator on it. And so I'm noticing something here. The original pads actually have like two shims. You guys can see this. It's got this shim right there, just like the new pads, but the original have this like brass shim over the top of the other shim. So I think what I'm going to do, see if I can get this. Will this come off the original pad? Yeah. So I'm going to take this shim off the original pad, and I'm going to add it onto the new pad if I can. Let's see if it'll go on there. Yeah. So probably what that is, guys, is it's just a little more noise, a little more vibration protection. So yeah, we'll go ahead and stick that on the new pad too, and then we'll clip it into place just like we did the first one. Get in there, boy. Alright, well, we'll put this side in first. It's hard to do this staring through a camera. If I try to stare in front of the camera, then my head's going to be in your way. But anyway, that's disassembled. And I do want to say this, guys. Look, if you're worried about how this looks or whatever, yeah, by all means, take you some brake clean and clean it up. You guys know on this channel, I'm not as worried about looks as I am performance. So I couldn't care less if the rotor's a little dirty going back on. So anyhow, the next thing we're going to do is take our new assembly and put it back on and put our big 18mm bolts back in. Go. We'll set this guy back on with our new pads in it. And I like to try to align the top bolt first. There we go. she's started. Then we'll go down and get the bottom bolt started. Okay, I guess I should give you guys some torque specifications to use with your little torquem wrench here. So here's the deal, guys. The big bolts that we just put in, those are torque to yield bolts. Now, in case you don't know what that means, I'll break it down for you Barney style. Basically, that means you don't use a regular torque spec. You have to use an angle, a torque angle. So what you do, you torque those two bad boys down to 30 foot-pounds first. Then you go an additional 90 degrees. Now, we've got a digital torque wrench over here that we generally use when we're doing LS cylinder heads, things like that, that tells us degrees. Guys, you do not have to have a fancy gauge or torque wrench to do 90 degrees. Basically, it's a quarter turn. Alright? So when you're tightening these two big bolts, you're going to torque them to 30 foot-pounds. Then you're going to go a quarter turn after that, right? So if your wrench is straight up, that means a quarter turn, 90 degrees, your wrench is going to be straight out afterward. Alright? That's about as simple as I can make it, guys. So 30 foot-pounds, then 90 degrees on those. Oh, and just for those who are wanting to know, let's see, what's the spec on that? This little guy right here, the spec on it is 89 inch-pounds. Not foot-pounds, guys, inch-pounds, which is basically nothing. I think that's like 10 foot-pounds maybe. I don't know. But it's pretty much nothing. So my advice is just snug that bad boy up and forget about it. Before we can put our caliper back on, we need to compress the piston there all the way back in, because obviously it's not going to go on. Our new brake pads are thicker, right? Right. Now, you can buy a tool at your auto parts store for less than $10 that goes in here and compresses this guy, but you guys have seen me do this before. You know what I use. I've got these big boys here, and I just take my old brake pad, the rear brake pad here, I stick it back in here, and I just take my big old pliers here and squeeze on it and compress the piston back in. Nice and slow. Once your piston's bottomed back out, just take our caliper and set it right back on. And we'll put our caliper bolts back in. I don't know if you guys can see that. Hopefully you can. We're putting these guys back in. And these two bolts are a lot more simple to torque. They just get torqued to 20 foot-pounds. Now, I want to show you something. While you're torquing these, you might find that this guy starts rotating. So if it does, just get you a really thin adjustable wrench, and you can use your adjustable wrench right there to hold that while you're tightening the bolt back here to 20 foot-pounds. Okay, guys, so here's where things get a little, you're going to have to look stuff up on your own-ish. I've got aftermarket wheels, and I was told to torque these to 100 foot-pounds. Alright? Depending on your wheels, whether you've got stock wheels or aftermarket wheels like I do, you may have a different torque spec for your lug nuts, okay? So, what I'm going to do, I'm going to take the old Milwaukee Impact here. I'm going to set it on setting 2, which, in my experience, if I brap it a couple times, usually sets these at about 90 foot-pounds. So I'm going to go ahead and just snug them up with that. And then once we let the car down so the wheels don't spin, I'm going to torque mine to 100 foot-pounds. But you guys need to look up the proper specs for your wheels, or, you know, whatnot, whatever you have. You need to look that up and make sure you use the factory, or I mean use the proper torque specs. Don't go by what I'm doing just because that's what my torque specs are. So here we are at the back, and we're going to start off pretty much the same, guys. We've got our 14 millimeter caliper bolts, top and bottom, so we're going to take those loose. And again, those aren't going to be that tight. Remember, they just get torqued to 20 foot-pounds. We're going to have to use a shorter socket on that bottom one. When I break this guy loose, apparently, the girl's tight. Oh yeah, so this isn't good. There we go. She broke loose, but yeah, it's not good. That shouldn't have been that tight. And I know these have never been worked on because we bought this car brand new, guys. This car's only got, I think, 65,000 miles on it. We've had it 11 years. It's a 2011. It's 2022 right now. But it's not because we don't drive it. It's just my wife only works 1.5 miles from where we live. So, you know, she alternates between this, the China Vet, and the Avalanche. So, you know, she just really don't put a whole lot of miles on the cars. So, I drive a company vehicle, so I don't put any miles on the car. So, we got those out. We're going to go ahead and lift our caliper off. And with this one, you really don't need to hang it. You can just kind of set him up here out of the way. And then we're going to move on to these bolts, which are going to be a little different. These are not 18 millimeter. Guys, these are actually, get ready for it, 16 millimeter bolts. And here's the funny thing about that. I've got numerous socket sets. I've got Craftsman, I've got Snap-on, I've got S&K. None of my socket sets have 16 millimeter sockets. They all skip from 15 straight to 17. Not sure why that is, but a 5/8 standard is pretty much the exact same size as a 16 mil. So that's what we're going to use to take those two bolts out. I'm going to go ahead and tell you in case I forget later, the torque specs are the same on the back as they are on the front, guys. On these, it does the whole 30 foot-pounds plus 90 degrees thing. So these are pretty damn tight. And these are 20 foot-pounds, just like the front. Okay, well, that one wasn't too bad. Let's see how this guy is. Okay. It helps to be a hideously deformed mutant of superhuman size and strength, such as myself sometimes. But you guys don't want to watch this, so I'm going to finish backing these out, and I will remove this bracket, and we'll get on with the show. Now, I am once again asking you to watch me put brake pads on. So we got our brake pads right here, so we're going to go ahead and pop those out. I mean, they go in and out pretty much just like the front did, guys. They just slide out, and then we'll pull our retainers off because our kit came with new retainers for the back, just like it did for the front. Ow, well, there's a cut. I was wondering when I was going to bleed. I was like, dang, man, we've already done the front and we're on the back and I hadn't bled yet. I was overdue. So same thing, guys. Take your new retainer and they just snap in just like so. See that? Snappy, snappy. And same thing up top. Little snappy, snappy. And then, let's see here, that's the inside. So, just like the front, again, we're going to take our power stop. You guys see that? There's a light blinding you. It says power stop on there. We're going to take our Brakemotive carbon ceramic pads, and just like the front, I keep moving stuff around, just like the front, the one with the wear indicator goes toward the inside of the car, why this thing's bent. There we go. I don't know what the hell. I'm going to slide it in. And get our outside pad. And I'm once again asking you to slide into this. There we go. Now we'll stick it back on the car. Same old, guys. Slide it on. Get your top bolt started first, if you can. Get it started first if you can. Do as I say, not as I do. There we go. Now she's in. And then get your bottom one started. And same story as the front, guys. These big bolts, you're going to torque them to 30 foot-pounds, then go another 90 degrees. Then I'm going to compress my caliper piston back in, just like I did with the fronts. Again, you can buy a very cheap tool to do this. Guys, I have always had this big-ass pair of pliers. I've probably had these things for going on 20 years, so this is just what I always use. But the actual tool to do this, super cheap, like $7-8. Now we're just gonna slide our caliper back on. Again, just like, say it with me, guys, just like we did on the front, just like we did on the last 3 brake job videos. Just gonna slide it on there. Put our bolts in, and we're going to torque these bad boys to 20 foot-pounds. Then we're going to put our big heavy ass 20 by 10 wheel back on. Where's all that hideously deformed mutant superhuman strength at now when I need it, huh? There we go. And again, you're going to need to just snug these up, and once the vehicle is back on the ground, you will torque the lug nuts to whatever torque specification your wheel manufacturer says to use. Or again, if you've got factory wheels, torque it to the factory specification. Google's a wonderful thing, guys. You can use it to find torque specs just as easy as you did to find this video. So I went ahead and got the other side done. So we're going to go ahead and get this girl off the jack stands. Now, the last thing you're going to want to do before doing your bed end on your brakes is check your brake fluid level. I'm going to tell you something right now, guys. Yeah, see, I got way too much in there. You might want to do this before you ever start and go ahead and pull some brake fluid out, because if you've actually been keeping on top of maintenance like you should be, you're going to have been adding brake fluid as the pads wore down to bring it up to the max mark. So what happens is, now you've got all that new pad material, the calipers are open more on all 4 corners, and it's pushed all the brake fluid up. Now I've got too much. As a matter of fact, some has actually leaked out on the garage floor a little bit when I was compressing that last caliper. So what I'm going to do now, I actually have a nice little cheap tool for this. This guy's about 10 years old too. He's all busted and cracked. It's just a turkey baster, guys. You can get this at Walmart. Look, this one says Rubbermaid. And I use this for just extracting fluids from things like this. You know, from the brake master cylinders. I use it for extracting power steering fluid. all that type of thing. Just a regular old turkey baster works good. It's just a couple bucks. What I'm going to do is I'm actually going to pull as much of this out as I can, since they sent me that whole new thing of brake fluid. I'm going to drain as much as I can out of here into my little bowl, and then I'm going to top it back off with some fresh. So now we're just going to close the hood, and let's talk about the proper procedure for bedding your new brakes in. It's real easy, guys. The name of the game is getting the brakes extremely hot without coming to a full stop. So what you want to do, take your car out, do 5 moderate to aggressive stops from about 40 miles per hour down to about 10. And you want to do these one right after another. Keep in mind, you're trying to get the brakes hot. So you're going to speed up to 40. You're going to get fairly hard on the brake down to about 10, but do not come to a complete stop. All right, then speed immediately back up to 40, then, you know, pretty hard stop back down to 10, okay? You want to do that 5 times. Then you want to do that 5 more times, but slow all the way down to about 5 miles per hour, you know, until you're just barely creeping. Speed back up to 40, do it again. After you do that, guys, I can't stress this enough. You are trying to get these brakes hot, okay? So if you don't smell brakes after you're done doing those 10 hard stops, one right after the other, freaking do 10 more, okay? And I say stops, but they're not stops or slowdowns because you're trying not to stop. But once you've done at least 10 of those, and you know, maybe you smell the brakes a little bit, then you're done. After that, you want to just drive around, let them cool off, you know, probably drive for 20 minutes or so. Try not to use the brakes that much. A lot of the times what I do, guys, is I will use the emergency brake while I'm doing my bed in, if I do have to come to a complete stop, so that the pads don't come to a complete stop on the rotor. So I'll slow down. Well, say somebody pulls out in front of me, or I'm at the end of a road or something, I'll use the emergency brake to stop me that last little bit, then immediately get going again. I hope that makes sense. But anyway, that's your bed-in procedure, guys. That's all it is to it. That's your brake job for a 2010 through, I think, about 2015, maybe 16. Well, for a 5th gen Camaro. So hopefully that helps some of you guys out. For my regular people who are here for the twin turbo Camaro content, don't worry, we got a new torque converter. We're going to be putting that in the next video. Once again, I hope this video helped you out. Yeah, guys, grab you some of these Brakemotive brake kits for your cars. Again, we've got these on 3 cars now. We've got them on China Vet, our nitrous Corvette. We've got them on the Avalanche. That's our car hauler. Been really happy with these brakes. So links in the description. Pick you some up, then get out in the garage, get something done, and I'll see you next time here on Bad Luck Garage. Now she can do the little stoppie.